Hello and welcome to my channel. Normally I post bicycle touring talk videos on Saturdays, most recently about my 2017 coast-to-coast tour across Canada. These will resume next week, and I certainly hope you'll join me again for that. This video, however, is about our most recent experience with international travel. I am George Flackhegg.
The one and only.
My wife Barbara and I traveled to Europe from Canada. I'm hoping that sharing our experience can help you get more clarity on what to expect if you're traveling overseas in the near future.
This video shares recent experiences only. Do not rely on it as your sole source of information. Please do your own research.
Let's get right into it. We're still in the midst of a global health crisis, and no one really knows how long it will go on and what other surprises it may throw at us. COVID restrictions vary greatly between countries. Many of them are inconsistent and confusing. Whatever information I give you here might be outdated by the time you travel, or it may not apply to your specific destination. Why make this video at all then, you may ask? We've witnessed people being denied check-in as well as boarding. Boarding time tends to be longer these days. Our flight back to Canada was delayed more than 1 hour, even though boarding had started slightly ahead of schedule. Our example is specific to Canada, but for other countries that accept travelers, similar procedures may be in place. Please inform yourself about the requirements of each country you're going to visit, as well as about what is required to return home. There may be expenses involved that can turn a seemingly great deal of a trip into a very expensive adventure. The first requirement for international travel, and that's pretty much universal, but in some cases not enough, is vaccination. You should have received 2 doses of an approved vaccine a minimum of 2 weeks before your trip. For most countries, the vaccines that are approved by the World Health Organization are okay, even if the doses were of 2 different kinds. This is not true for the US, however, where the AstraZeneca vaccine, for example, is not yet approved at the time of this recording. When we went to Europe, the vaccine alone was enough to get us through the controls, along with all the usual documentation like passports and visas were applicable. Would you believe no one even checked our proof of vaccination? It is necessary to travel with a good supply of face masks and even a small quantity of hand sanitizer. Make sure your tube is no more than 100 milliliters and inside a Ziploc bag if you put it into your carry-on. Mask mandates are in place almost everywhere in Europe right now, in one form or another. For the first while we were in Germany, that was all that was required when entering restaurants and stores. Later on, however, the case numbers had gone up and more requirements were added. In Germany, to stick with our example, and this may vary region by region, you may hear about the 3G rule, or in some cases the 2G. This refers to geimpft, meaning vaccinated, genesen, which means recovered, and in the case of a third G, getestet, which means tested. In each case, you will have to provide proof of your status, so it's important to take your documentation with you at all times and take good care of it. In Germany, there are many places where instant tests are offered, sometimes free of charge. Quick tests will get you into most places when the 3G rule applies. However, the gold standard of a test is called a PCR test. This brings me to the requirements for someone traveling from many so-called high-risk areas and to the general requirements for returning to Canada as of August and at least early September of 2021. you will need proof of a negative PCR test result. The test must not be older than 72 hours at the time of your flight. This is required regardless of your vaccine status. Where it gets more complicated in the case of Canada is the ArriveCAN app. The way it works is that you must first register with a password and the whole kit before uploading all your documentation, including passport and proof of vaccination. You'll have to do that by scanning the documents with your smartphone or other mobile device. Then you'll have to confirm that you have proof of a negative PCR test, as well as answer questions about your quarantine plan in case any of your documentation is not accepted or you get sick. This includes questions about the address of your quarantine location and the conditions on site, like access to life necessities, and if there are other people in that location you may come in contact with. Once all the documentation is uploaded and the questionnaire is completed, you'll receive an email with the confirmation code. You will need that code when you arrive in Canada. Besides that, you'll be asked for proof of your negative PCR test result. It is important to be informed about all of those requirements and whatever changes may have been put in place by the time you travel, because there are fines for non-compliance. We've heard of people getting fined over $5,000 for getting the wrong COVID test.
Oh no!
Once through all the controls at the airport, you may be selected for an additional COVID test. In our case, it sure seemed like pretty much everyone on our plane was selected, which may have had to do with high case numbers in the Netherlands, where our flight had taken off from. Of course, this led to pretty long delays. The arrivals hall at the airport was full of people completing yet another questionnaire, which pretty much resembled the one from the ArriveCAN app, before lining up for another PCR test done right there in the arrivals area. Refusing this test may get you transferred to a quarantine facility and cost a hefty fine. It may even lead to imprisonment. After the test was done, we were free to go, but we were told to keep a record of all the person we'd come in close contact with for the next 14 days. Our test came back negative the day after our arrival, but the documentation states that it is possible to test negative even after being infected, which is why you're required to monitor yourself for signs and symptoms. Well, this pretty much completes the new travel experience. It's a pain in the ass, isn't it? Yes, it is. However, the reality is that we're still in the global pandemic. The bug we're up against has already mutated and may do so again. No one knows how much damage it can still do, but we know a lot about how it spreads, and unfortunately, traveling and coming into contact with people is one of the major ways it does. With vaccines and following the measures in place at any given location, you're just doing the minimum required to protect yourself and others. Hopefully the situation will soon change so that unrestricted travel is possible. In my opinion, travel is essential for gaining an understanding of the world we live in. Sharing the experiences of travel is not a substitute, but I believe there is significant value in it. This is why I've recorded a ton of footage while away, and you'll see much of it in upcoming videos. Barbara and I spent time in Germany and experienced some great bike rides on infrastructure that is unheard of in North America. If you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe. Did you find this video useful? Please do me a favor and hit the like button. Some of my Germany videos are already out. Why not watch one right now? Thank you.